The story begins with the hero Kiminsu, who was writing a letter describing what had happened to him. It had been 1 year since he, who had been living a normal and interesting life. One day, he got hit by truck Ken and reincarnated into the world he was in at the time. At first, he cried a lot and wanted to run away, but he saw a ray of hope, a way to go back to his world. He started to adapt to this world. On the battlefield where tons of people died, he tried to hold his ground against the enemies with his comrades. He learnt about courage and comradeship, which he didn't know when he was just a normal person. Over time, he had become much more stronger now. People had started to become more reliant on him. On the way of his journey, there were sacrifices made. He lost comrades who were dear to him and went through thick and thin with him. He lost a lot, but also gained a lot. And finally, the end of this year's journey was in sight. He was sitting in front of a huge gate while writing this letter to his parents, and he knew he couldn't mail this to them. Behind this door was the Demon King. If he defeats the Demon King, he could return to his daily life. His comrades were also ready for this final moment. The hero opens the gate to face the Demon King. The city bell rang, and the whole city was in joy because the hero had defeated the Demon King. The whole city was cheering for the hero and his party. There was a festival to celebrate this victory. All his friends were happy and celebrating, but the hero was still looking down. The priestess reminds him that he will be able to go back to his world tomorrow. When Kiminsu first came to this world, he never expected the day would come when he would get to come back to his home. The priestess reminded him how he was crying the first time he came to this world. She hugged him and assured him that he had done great till now. Minsu was so relieved that he couldn't stop crying. He was still missing his parents and his friends from his world. The rest teased them for having a relationship and hiding it from them. They wanted him to stay with them and ask him to rethink his decision. But the priestess told them not to force him and just pray that he lives happily with his family forever in his own world. 3 weeks later, in Seoul, Kim Min-soo was standing in the middle of the road, depressed. His eyes were dreadful. He was telling the priestess how wrong she was. He might have saved the world, but he couldn't save himself. When he first returned to his home, he found someone else in his apartment. During the 8 months he was gone, he heard that his mother died in a hit-and-run accident while handing out flyers, saying he couldn't have just left their house. After his mother passed away, his father, who blamed himself for being unable to protect either his son or his wife, took his own life. In the end, his death became a newspaper issue, and his missing person report was stuck at the end of the news story. The police classified him as a missing teenager. His school blamed him for his parents' death and expelled him from the school. He became that guy who wouldn't fit in with friends. His friends left him because they didn't want anything to do with him. No one truly wanted to help him. He became a child who was considered a nuisance to his family. His uncle used to beat him because he blamed him for his brother's death. He allowed them to die while he was somewhere having fun that he couldn't even give a call. His aunt suggested he leave if he didn't want to receive this kind of treatment. He was also the reason their family had gone bankrupt as well. They were just an average family, so they had no money left. He started sleeping in the parks and on the side of roads. It wasn't just the money that he didn't have. He had no family, no degree, and no social life. There was no Kim Min-soo left. He wondered if he was having a nightmare. He saved the world. He saved the life of many people. The moment they needed him, he risked his life for them, but he didn't understand why was he deserted instead. While he was standing in the middle of the street, a big muscular guy bumped into him and was furious at him for blocking the street. But his girlfriend started laughing because he looked like a loser. They both start making fun of him while laughing when Min-soo asked him why they weren't sad, and that he could laugh even though he didn't save the world. The guy didn't understand what he was blabbering about, but it was making him furious. Min-soo realized what he wanted to do. He wanted everyone to feel the same as he did. The guy couldn't take his crap anymore and started to beat him while Min-soo was just standing there. He called for his weapon, the sword of Durant. The girlfriend was still laughing at him with her whole heart when his sword pierced through the guy and only his hand remained. The girl screamed in terror after realizing what just happened. Kim Min-soo was happy that she was feeling the same way he did and said how unfair it was for only him to be sad. He was the hero. He should be the last person to be sad. His powers start coming back to him, and his white armor as well. He swings his sword of Durant while saying he should be rewarded instead. With just one swing, he slaughtered everyone there and destroyed everything around him. The hero who saved the world and they lived happily ever after was how it was supposed to end. The city of Seoul, the region of Gangsa, was evaporated in a blink. 3 weeks after the hero's rampant The whole city was in chaos. They wanted to go as far as possible from the city. We see a guy named Jingsu Park, who was also getting out of the city with his sister, mother, and grandmother. They were going to meet the father and get to the south, but the traffic was a mess and they were barely moving. The sister, Dabin, was scared. Jingsu assured him that their father was waiting for them at the station. Just then, a cop informed them that the hero was extremely close to them. They would have to run on foot if they wanted to survive. Everyone has thought at least once about the end of the world by world wars, nuclear wars, or something like a zombie apocalypse. But they had never thought that the world would be destroyed by a hero. The cop who was making the announcement got crushed under a tank, causing the people to panic. Dabin couldn't run, so Jingsu picked her up and started running. But they find the hero standing in front of them, who had already slaughtered the people on the other side. They started running from him. Seeing them struggling for their life, Kim Min-soo finds it to be disgusting. The thought of them thinking they could get out of there alive made him even more furious, and he attacked them. Jingsu bumped into some and Dabin dropped her doll. She insisted on getting the doll back because it was given to her by his father. Jingsu sat her there and asked her where the doll was. While he was trying to get the doll, which was under a car, the hero swung his sword once again, which destroyed anything that was in its way. When Jingsu came outside with the doll, he witnessed the horrifying nightmare that was waiting for him. He searched for his sister and his family, but he only found their remains. The hero comes from behind him and compliments him, saying he's got good eyes. The look of losing everything and everyone. The eyes without hopes and dreams. They look just like his own eyes. Jingsu asked him if he was the hero, and when he said yes, he attacked him with a stick. But Kim Min-soo grabs him by the throat. Jingsu threatens to kill him while crying. Kim Min-soo asked him how he was going to do that and ran his sword through him. That day, Jingsu lost everything to the hero. Dabin, his family, and even his own life. He was wondering if he was going to die without being able to do anything, without taking revenge for his family. When the darkness started surrounding him, he heard someone calling him. When he opened his eyes, he found a girl magician in front of him who was calling him a hero. That day, he became the very thing that he despised the most, a hero. 1 year after the hero's rampant, the government fell apart. Just like Min-soo, people who were missing during the same time periods returned as heroes. The 9 heroes who conquered the lands split the land among themselves except for Min-soo Kim's seal. This was how the world came to be as today. Now we see Jeju Island, territory of the golem hero. A giant golem eyeball was keeping an eye on the whole island. There were some human survivors who were under the golem hero's control. A girl says to her friend that she wants to die. Her friend was scared and told her not to jinx them as she was scared of dying. They fled to this island so that they could live in the first place. Just then, a giant hand golem came bursting through the door, ordering them to get to work if they wanted to live. They were being used as slaves. In return, they got to live on the island. They all gather in one place where the golem hero, Sung Woo-jian, addresses them. He could create anything out of clay. He creates loudspeakers for his announcement. He gave them today's mission. Women would be gathering food. Men would be working construction. But he saw no response from the crowd as no one wanted to work to death, obviously. He says to them how they should be grateful that he was letting them live. If they were in other heroes' land, they would have been used as life supplies. But they were still not motivated to work, which made him furious. So he decided to teach them a lesson. The crowd ran for their lives, but it was too late. With just the flick of his fingers, he killed a major portion of the crowd in an instant. In that crowd was the girl, So-min's friend. While everyone was running for their life, So-min closed her friend's eyes and realized how she was the one to survive again. The golem hero threatened to do the same to the rest of them if they didn't get to work. While they were picking up tangerines, So-min wasn't working as hard. An elderly gave her share of tangerines to her and told her to go take a work as she was having a hard time. But she warned her to be aware of the golem's eye. She went to the beach to take a breath. Now that she was alone by herself, she started crying. She blamed herself for her friend's death, saying she was the one who jinxed her. While she was crying, she saw a soldier who asked her for something to eat. After he was done eating, he requested her to bring him more as there were more soldiers on the island who were hungry. At first, she was scared of getting caught by the hero, but then she asked them if they would recover the island after they got their energy back. The soldier told her that this was the reason they came to the island in the first place. While coming back with more food, she revealed the reason she wanted to die was because she was afraid of losing anyone else. But now she was going to rebel against the hero and survive with the others. But when she arrived there, her only hope to recover the island was destroyed into pieces. The golem hero was there, and he had already killed the soldiers who were there to help them. She was devastated. The golem hero grabbed her as well. She was confused about how he knew when she managed to avoid the golem's eye. Then the golem hero revealed his secret. There were thousands of golem's eyes spread around the island. He made them invisible on purpose. She started cussing him, but he blamed her inability and that they should have consoled him when he was suffering. As he was about to crush her, she started begging for anyone to fight her fights since she was too weak to do something. Just then, a ray of light came tearing the skies, destroying his golems. The golem hero wondered who would be strong enough to destroy his golems. It was a hero. Hero Yunsupark had returned. He saw the atrocities that the golem hero had committed. He asked Somin to explain the situation to him. The golem hero kept asking him how he was, but Jingsu wouldn't react to him. Somin figured out that he was not part of Sword Hero's party. Even the golem hero didn't know who he was. She figured it was her chance and told him that this guy was an underling of the sword hero, and how he took over Jeju Island and massacred people. The golem hero got frustrated with Somin for interfering between them. The spear hero, Jingsu, got the gist of the situation. He asked one final question for confirmation if all she said was true. He was fuming with anger. The golem hero replies it was all true with his smug face. Jingsu didn't need to know anymore and was ready to kill him. This angers the golem hero as well, and he attacks him with his hand golems. Not only that, he starts raining lasers on him from the thousands of eye golems that he had. But the spear hero starts destroying the golems and rushes towards the golem hero. The golem hero didn't expect him to come at him this quickly and wasn't ready to fight back, which resulted in him losing both of his arms to the spear hero. This guy single-handedly dominated the golem hero, who destroyed an entire naval fleet in such a short time as well. Junsu asked him if the sword hero was the one with the white armor. When he didn't answer, he cut off one of his legs and threatened to cut his limbs one by one every time he said he didn't know. The golem hero told him that he was right. The white-armored hero was the sword hero that they were talking about. He asked him where he was right now, but the golem hero was hesitant, so Jingsu cuts off his other leg as well. The golem hero begged to spare him, but Jingsu replied him that he wouldn't spare him, but he would make his death painless if he told him where the sword hero was. The golem hero informed him that he was not talking to him, he was talking to his golems. Suddenly all of his golems that were spread around the island attacked the spear hero and Somin collectively. The golem hero managed to escape that barrage, and he got a flashback from his time in the other world. The priestess of that world begged him to save their world. Otherwise, the Demon King's next target would be the world that he came from. So he not only saved that world, he also saved the Earth as well without them knowing. He just wanted to hear some form of appreciation for saving both worlds. But when he came back to his home, his father rejected having a son like him. He couldn't even get help from the government because he was now over 18, and the law doesn't support or provide housing to teenagers who are over the age of 20. He wasn't welcomed anywhere, let alone hear the words of appreciation. He got fired from his job because he lied about being a minor. They didn't even pay him for the work he had done. They threatened to go to the police instead. So he thought it would be fine if he destroyed this world that rejected him. Now that he had finally conquered the world, he didn't want to die, but his fears came to be true. The spear hero was still not dead. He even saved Salmon. Junsu told him that he couldn't run from him and was about to throw his final shot. The golem hero also prepares his final strike, the praying flower. All of his remaining golems gather to create a final attack. The spear hero imbued his spear with an electricity element, creating a strong attack, a godly lightning strike. They both launched their attack, but the spear hero's attack started to overpower the golem hero's attack. His spear pierced through his attack and him at the same time. And this was the final moment of the golem hero, who destroyed the Jeju Island and the naval fleet. On the other hand, in the world where the golem hero was summoned, the priestess had created a great statue to pay him their respect. Every magician was present there to witness this, and they all prayed for the hero's well-being. But unbeknownst to them, their hero was already dead. The golem hero had died, and with his death, the golems that controlled the castle fell with him, meaning that it was the first time this island was at peace since the hero's rampage. Solmin freed the civilians and let them reunite with their loved ones. Jinsu didn't appear in front of them. He was just watching from the shadows. He was happy to see the families reunite. He sees his own family in them. He envies them because unlike him, they have a place to go back to. While he was going back, he heard someone in the bushes. It was the girl from earlier. She told him how everyone wanted to meet the savior who killed the hero, to which he replies that a hero killing another hero that just scare them more. They were better off not eating him. He didn't care about the praise to begin with. She says how he was kind, that's why he cared about their feeling. He leaves it to her to interpret however she wants, because they were not gonna see each other again anyway. She asks him if he is planning to kill all the heroes, to which he replied that he was gonna kill all of the heroes who were connected to the sword hero with white armor. She requests him to let her help too, so that she could also take her revenge on them. He asks if she is stupid. She assured him that she wasn't going to be a dead weight, and also, he didn't know where all the heroes were, but she did. She saw everything on her way from Seoul to Jeju Island. She had some idea which reed was controlled by which hero, and what kind of abilities they had. She could help him with food and shelter as well. She demanded to let her be his guide. He asked her what was her reason, because if she were to stay he could at least guarantee her life. She replies how she too lost her family and despised those heroes, and wanted the world to be a better place again. She had all of those like him, but she didn't have the power to do anything. So she wanted to do it by sticking next to someone who had power, and finally, take her revenge. While everyone was enjoying their freedom, the two that brought them their freedom had just started a new contract. He informed her that she could follow him if she didn't mind getting used or being left behind. They were staying in an abandoned building. She gave him two options: to kill the one who was nearest but was a pain in the ass to deal with, or the one who was less annoying but far. Obviously, he picked the one who died quickly and was nearest, meaning his next opponent was the Sea Dragon hero. Having destroyed an entire fleet on her own in the Pacific Ocean, she was the worst hero of the water. As if it wasn't bad enough that she controlled the ocean, she also had a dragon who was as bad as a nuclear bomb. They also killed refugees who were on their way to Jeju Island, and in one of those boats was her mother as well. He told her not to list her crimes as if they were achievements. All he needed to know was that she was a murderer who deserved to die. But what was more important was that they needed a boat. She knew exactly the person who could help them with that. She took him to the Marines who had recovered their boat. They assured him that they'd make sure to get him there, in the name of their fallen comrades, at the southern coastal sea. Inside the massive tornadoes, the Sea Dragon hero was reciting. She assured her dragon, saying they'd not make it to the land. We see the soldier from earlier, who was sitting with their fallen comrades. He asked the captain if he is sure about this. They didn't know if he was a friend or foe. The captain replies that he killed the golem hero, and he was surely going to kill all the other heroes, and that was enough for him. The 30 soldiers whom he treated as his sons died that day. He wasn't going to let their sacrifice go in vain. If the hero they were helping was stronger than the sword hero, Minsukim, their sacrifice would become the beginning of their nation's freedom. The captain asks him again if he is willing to walk on that hellish land with him. 1 hour after they departed, the girl informed him all about the Sea Dragon hero. She draws a sketch of her and the dragon, which the hero interprets as a worm that was controlled by a stickman figure. She loudly says to him that drawing wasn't one of her strong points. She further informs him that the girl was the brain and the dragon was the brawn, but the dragon had his own mind as well. Then hero Jinsu Park asks her about their fighting style. She revealed that the dragon either breathes fire or knocks over the ships with its body, and the girl blocks the attack coming their way. Jinsu remarked how it was going to be hard to deal with someone like her, as she could attack and defend at the same time. Just then, they hear a commotion outside. They got out to see what was going on. All the soldiers were in panic and were preparing themselves. Jinsu questions one of the soldiers about the situation. He informs him that the radar has picked up an unidentified object, but there was not just one, but more than 400 objects. They brace for impact, and Jinsu also gets in the position. They start firing at the thing coming their way. After they were done shooting, they found out they were nothing more than some fish. Sumin says how she got scared for no reason when Jinsu suggested she be afraid, as the real deal was there. We see that the dragon appears from the ocean in front of them, and the Sea Dragon hero, Swashin, was also on top of it. She recognizes Jinsu as the hero who killed the golem hero and decided to blow up the entire boat. As the dragon was about to breathe fire, the captain ordered to dodge the attack, but much to their surprise, Jinsu told them to drop the anchor. The crew member thought he had gone insane and was about to turn the boat, but the captain ordered him to do as he'd said and lower the anchor. Swashin fired at the boat with the intent to make it disappear. Jinsu uses his ability Weapon Exchange and changes his weapon to a shield spear, Ansile. His spear transformed, or rather got swapped with another spear. He activates his spear, Ansile, and creates a massive shield in front of the ship. He ordered everyone to get down if they didn't want to die. The impact of their attack was enormous, which impacted the whole ocean. The hero trying to stop the attack, while the others were just dumbfounded. The soldier realizes that Jinsu couldn't fight back as he was stopping the attack. He asks the captain to them orders to distract them. He gives them orders to fire and aim for the head. All the crew members open fire on the head, but much to their surprise, all of the attacks were blocked by Swashin. She used her spear to create the shield of the Atlas, which stopped all the attacks easily. The captain assured them not to get discouraged. They had already known that their firearms were useless against the heroes. The ultimate objective was to distract them as much as they could. He ordered them to open fire again and use all the firepower they had in the arsenal. Jinsu complimented them, saying they were not all useless. The dragon's firepower had started to weaken the moment she started to focus on the fire. It was because she was sharing her mana with the dragon. If he somehow manages to deplete her out of mana, they could win. Seeing him moving forward, she wondered if he had figured out that she was sharing mana with the dragon, but she remarks it didn't matter. All she needed to was to destroy the distraction. She throws her spear, calling it the Spear of the Atlas. It destroyed the bombs coming her way and went for the hero, but it changed its direction midway, shocking Jinsu. She could control her spear from afar. The spear started to destroy all the firearms and the ship as well. Just with the flick of her finger, she was able to destroy a whole ship easily. One of the soldiers ran to the captain to get him out of the way, but the spear got both of them, and now it was coming straight for Jinsu Park. The dragon in front and the Spear of the Atlas from behind. She remarks how this was the end for the hero with no name. We see a splash of blood. The soldier who was second in command came in front of the spear and took it on upon him. He mocks Swashin for underestimating them. He thinks back on the captain's words, how their sacrifice won't be in vain, and that their death would mark a new chapter in the history of humanity. The spear kept on pushing, but he didn't let go of it and kept holding it. Before it could reach the hero Jinsu, her mana depleted, which wasn't something she accounted for. Before dying, he requests Jinsu to make good use of it. He finally fell down, but not before completing his mission. Jinsu expresses his gratitude and holds the spear himself. He puts his own spell on it with the help of his skill, applying elements. On the other side of the world, the soldier finally unites with his brethren who had fallen before him. He apologizes to them for being late, and they welcome him with whole open arms. In a flashback, we see the beautiful underwater city of Atlas. Swashin, who was still just a high schooler, was reincarnated in the city of the dragons, Atlas. The king of Atlas welcomes her and praises her for staying calm even though it is her first time there. She was already informed about this, but she wasn't too keen on this. The king of Atlas passes on his spear to her, which had been passed on through many generations. It was passed on to the chosen one to become the hero of the sea dragon. He explains to her the significance of holding that spear and how his life was not in her hands as well. She accepts the spear, and the king vows to protect her from all that stands in the way of her, and then announces her to be the hero of the sea dragons. In the present, she was furious at him for holding her spear, telling him he wasn't worthy of holding it, and that he should return it to her at once. He says he was going to return it for sure, but not in the way she expected him to. The dragon increases his fire breath. Jedu deactivates the shield to attack her with her own spear. He casts his own spell on the spear called Glacial Path. He releases the spear, and it starts freezing the fire while roaring towards them. Swashin orders the Dragon King to stop with the attack and to focus on the defense instead. They form the Grand Shield of Atlas, which was 5-tier magical defense barrier that even the pterodactyl Demon King could pierce. She challenges him to try his best, but much to her surprise, the spear started breaking the shields one by one. She found it to be impossible, but her last shield managed to block it after all. She was relieved, thinking she could activate her fire breath again, but then she realizes that Jinsu has disappeared. He reveals his location to her, which makes her aware of his plan. The attack earlier wasn't meant to break the shield, but to make a path for himself. Jinsu attacked for the last time when their defense was the weakest. They didn't have enough time to create another shield and couldn't escape Jinsu's direct him. The attack split the both of them in half, but before dying, she expresses her love for the Atlas King. The attack was strong enough to tear the ocean apart along with both of them. In the flashback, she remarks how they loved each other. We see a battlefield where they had just fought the Demon King and had won against him. The dragon transforms back to King Atlas. He says they have just escaped their predestined future. He expresses his love to the hero, but she was sad because they had just defeated the Demon King, meaning she'd have to go back to her world now, and she didn't want to get separated from him either. So he promises to follow her to her world, saying his role as the King of the Atlas has been fulfilled. But the council opposes his decision, worrying about his well-being. But he argues that if the hero could live in their world, so he could live in her world as well. He hands over the throne to the next heir in line and vows to live by her side as her partner. They got engaged as well, but the problem started there. The sea dragon's body did not get accustomed to the human world. It became more and more difficult to maintain his human form, but he acted as if there was nothing wrong with him. But their life fell apart when one day, when she got back from work, she found him in a difficult state. He was changing back into the dragon, and he couldn't control it. He told her not to come close to him, but she hugged him anyway. She proposed to go to some island where no one could find them. That way, they could always stay together. While they were going to the island on the ship, he couldn't control it anymore and turned it into his real form, which resulted in many casualties. After the incident, the government ruled them as terrorists like Kim Min-soo, and that's how they became villains. Thousands of fleets started to come after them and attack them day after day, and they destroyed every single one of them. At this point, she didn't care about them being the villains. She was going to protect him by whichever means necessary. He fought to protect him. Now she demands to let her fight for him. Now in the present, they both were on their last breath when the Atlas King expressed that he loved her too. On the other side, we see a destroyed city, and the sword hero, Kim Min-soo, is sitting there beside a monument of a hero named Lee Sung-jin. Just then another hero approaches him and gives him the news about the golem hero and the sea dragon hero dying at the hands of a new hero. He gave him his image and said to him how people had new hope now. He advised him that he should make a move if he wanted to maintain the eternal sadness that he had created. The hero was so out of touch with his human side that he was doing whatever that guy told him. In another world, where Jinsu had reincarnated, we see all of his spears which he summons during the fights. A knight informs the little witch girl that the spear has started to disappear and reappear. They realize that it means the hero's quest for revenge has begun. She orders to call for all the elite blacksmiths to mend as many spears as possible. It was time for them to repay the hero. After the knight was gone, she thinks back to how the hero never had any interest in saving their world in the first place. Out of all generations of heroes of spears, he pushed himself the hardest. He trained to his last breath every day without any breaks. The witch girl told him he could stop as they had managed to proceed to the next stage. But he was still not going to stop. He trained day and night, but he was still not on the level of the sword hero. He blamed himself for Dabin dying, because he was too weak to save her. Jinsu fulfilled his duties without questioning or faltering into silence. He'd always go beyond what was required, ahead of his party members. During one of the missions, he was going way too deep on his own. His party members try to stop him, but he doesn't listen to them. While he was distracted by some small orcs, their leader attacked him, which he couldn't dodge. He started hallucinating and saw Kim Min-soo in the orcs. He starts fuming with anger and goes berserk on them. In just a few moments, he got rid of all of the small orcs and attacked their leader as well. Even the leader orc couldn't defend himself from his rage. Seeing his brutality, the other party members were terrified. He kept on butchering them until he was the last one standing, on top of their core. We come to know that he was haunted by his family's death constancy. He couldn't stop his nightmares of that day. Instead of a hero, he acted like a sinner or a revenge spirit. One night, while everyone was asleep, he was still awake as he couldn't sleep. The witch girl asks permission to put ointment on his injuries. When he removes his bandages, we see all of the scars he had from all the fighting and training. The girl asked him why he kept fighting, and if he wasn't tired or was in pain. She told him to think of his family, and what would they think if they saw all the scars on his body? To which he coldly replies that he had no family, that everyone was dead. Then why are you in such a rush to get to the Demon Lord and to go home? She asks. He says there was someone he needed to kill when he got back. She remarks how there was no way anyone could be stronger than he was now. To which he replies that that guy was. He was still a hell of stronger than he was. He needed to become strong enough to overpower him completely. He started talking like a maniac, saying how when he got stronger, he'd cut all of his limbs, render him immobile, hand his body up in the sunny spot, and how he'd make him eat his own flesh to keep him alive. She was absolutely and utterly horrified by him. She thought to herself how he was deeply twisted in mind. And finally, the day came when he defeated the Demon King of that world. The Demon King praises him, saying the spear hero this time was incredibly strong, and he wonders how strong the next spear hero will be after 100 years. But much to everyone's surprise, he wasn't going to let the Demon Lord die that easily. He used the elixir of miracles on him to heal him. The Demon Lord remarked how he wanted to get corrupt and wished to become a Demon Lord himself. But the only reason he brought him back was so that he could fight him to become stronger. The Demon Lord was baffled. He fought with the Demon Lord again and again and again, until the Demon Lord started begging him to kill him. His party members were scared as well. The witch girl grabbed him and begged him to stop. She promised that they'd help him in his revenge, so he should hold on to some of the humanity he had left. In the present, the blacksmith had started to forge the weapons. The witch girl prays that after he gets his revenge, he doesn't become a monster himself. After Jinsu executes them, the sword hero appears beside him. He asks him if thinks anyone is going to cheer for him and all the effort he put in. "You are not a savior," he says, and neither he was the protagonist of some epic tale. Jinsu said to him that it didn't matter and stabbed him. It wasn't the real sword hero, but just Jinsu's imagination which always haunts him. He says he just needed to be the person who kills him, that's all he cared about. Somin couldn't believe he really killed one more hero, and wondered if he might really be able to kill all the other heroes. He asked her about the survivors, but there was no one left. Without the crew, there was no way to get to the mainland. She asked him if had any abilities like before which they could use. He replied that he was not a magician, and told her to do her job as a guide instead. He points out how she did nothing to help him during the fight either, and that she was useless. She gets angry at him for calling her that, but realizes that he wasn't wrong. At night, she searches for the manual book to steer the ship and be useful to the hero. Just then, she hears someone walking. When she goes to investigate, she finds the hero paying his respects to the dead soldiers. He states how his father was also in Navy and probably died at the hands of the heroes just like them. He then recognizes the soldier who had saved his life earlier. He apologizes to him for not being able to send him off in a better way, and for not being able to protect him. He gives the spear to him as a tribute, praying he gets to be reborn in a world that doesn't require sacrifice. Somin also pays her respects to them. The next day, in the morning, they had a guest on their doorstep. It was a helicopter filled with some army guys and a government official, Jenguk Choi, the leader of the restored government's counter-warrior team. He was looking for the rebel hero and the women with him. Someone on the radio asked them to be careful as they had no idea if he was on their side. Jinsu asked her if she contacted someone on the radio, but she did not. She told him to be careful as they could be one of the warriors' lackeys. Since the warriors came into power, a number of civilians joined their cause. Jenguk announced that he was from the restored government's counter-warrior team. He lowered the rope ladder for them to get on. Jinsu asked her if she knew about them. There were rumors about them on Jeju Island that there was a group formed by surviving members of the government and military, and that they were fighting back against the warriors using guerrilla warfare. They got on the helicopter, but they were still suspicious of them. Jinsu asked them where they are going, but Jenguk replied that he'd be the one asking questions. He signals his men to handcuff him. Somin tries to convince them that he is on their side, saying how he has killed 2 of the heroes already, but they point their gun at her and order her to settle down. Jenguk clarified that he didn't trust him as they knew nothing about his motives, and they were not giving him a ride but taking him in as a prisoner. Jinsu asked him how many seconds he thinks would take him to behead all of his soldiers and take over this helicopter, and that if he really thinks guns are effective against a hero. Somin looks at him in stress, thinking the bullet would work on her though. Jenguk shows him the bomb he'd wrapped around him, saying he wouldn't escape unscathed, even if he survived that. They were 2,000 feet high. If he were to fall from that height, he'd certainly get injured if not dead. Even if he survived, he'd never be able to get to the land by just swimming. They had thought this through and through. Jinsu was fuming with anger. Somin advised him to calm down for now, seeing they'd had prepared thoroughly. Jenguk advised him to do the same and come with them silently. He ordered his men to tie him up. They arrive at their location and land the helicopter over a half-demolished building. The so-called rebel warrior Jinsu Park had arrived at the headquarters of South Korea's restored government. He ordered to take them to the interrogation room. They'd soon find out whether he was on their side or a spy of the sword hero. We see a drone flying above them. In a room full of CCTV footage, we see another hero, who had just discovered their location, calling them little rats.